Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Penn State's 2025 Workforce Education OD&C Conference, hosted by the Workforce Education and Development and Organization Development and Change programs at the Pennsylvania State University. This is an event sponsored by Penn State College of Education, Penn State Office of the Provost for Education, Equity, and Penn State University Park Allocation Committee. My name is Halima Hatha. I'm a doctoral student in Workforce Education and Development program at Penn State. I will be moderating today's session alongside with my colleagues, who is also a doctoral student in the Jose, a PhD candidate in Learning, Design, and Technology program at Penn State. We are excited to engage with you using the features of the Zoom platform. At the end of this presentation, there will be a Q&A session. If you want to present to address your question, please type it into Q&A box. If you encounter any technical issue during the webinar, please let us know using the chat box. Our online Master of Professional Studies in Organization, Development, and Change is designed for professionals who want to gain the skills and knowledge necessary to lead organizational change effectively. Additionally, we offer a PhD program in Workforce Education and Development with contraction in Human Resource Development and Organization Development. Since 2021, we have established the biannual free conference featuring experts from around the globe. Today, we are excited to present using organizations' development methods of facilitate social change in age of artificial intelligence by Professor William Rothwell, a keynote speaker in a world where technological advance, especially artificial intelligence, AI, are accelerating at and accelerating the challenges for organizations and commitments isn't simply about keeping up. It is about ensuring that this wave of innovation is harnessed for the greater good. AI, while powerful, has the potential to either deepen divides or create opportunities for unity and progress. How we manage change, build resilient system, and foster inclusivity will define our success in this new era. This keynote speaker will examine how the principles and practices of organization development, with its focus on human-centered change, collaboration, and ethical leadership, can guide people through the complexity of social change and transformation. The session will review how OD method, when combined with capabilities of AI, can empower organizations to address social equity, enhance human potential, and drive sustainability change. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our speaker for today. Speaker Dr. Rothwell, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I just want to thank the people who introduced me, Dr. Yoon and Halima, for their wonderful introduction. I lead the OD component of Penn State's programs, And today, my keynote will focus on the same theme that the entire conference is focused on. You'll note in the footnote there at the bottom of my title slide, Navigating the Nexus, Exploring the Dynamic Interplay Between Social Change and Artificial Intelligence. So my talk is, as you see, entitled Using OD Methods to Facilitate Social Change in an Age of Artificial Intelligence. Before I get into the many slides that I have, and I have a tendency to over-prepare, meaning I have too many slides for the time I have available, I just want to tell you a bit about the backstory of what leads to this talk. So some years ago, I was working with a group of former PhD students who had all gotten their PhDs in our program, and we were writing a book about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how to set up and launch such programs inside organizations. And we did write that book, but as we were writing it, we said, you know, there's something missing in this book. We focused on the inside of organizations, what organizations need to do to establish a change where people are more appreciative and welcoming of and celebrating the differences of human beings in organizational settings. And what we're missing is the world outside the organization, the world outside the company or the university or the employer. And how can you have a program to inspire diversity when the surrounding community, the surrounding society is not appreciative of diversity and is filled with racism, xenophobia, homophobia, and the many problems that we all know still exist in the world today? So that led us to want to go the next step and focus on the topic of social change, meaning how do we bring about change in society, not limited to organization development's traditional focus inside organizations, but rather how do we pull it out of a company and make it broader? And that leads to today's talk. So in a world where technological advances, especially AI, are accelerating change at a staggering pace, and AI, which has the potential to do so much good, but also has the potential to do so much that is bad, we have to consider what is the role of OD in dealing with AI and other technologies. And yesterday we heard some of our speakers talk about that. Dr. Shufutinsky talked about that in his talk, which some of you were unable to hear. But I'm going to take up with that general theme, and all of today's session really focuses on this issue. So I'm going to examine how the principles of organization development, with its focus on human-centric change, collaboration, and ethical leadership, can guide people through the complexity of social change and transformation. So, like any good trainer, I do have some objectives, you might call them targets, that I have to achieve during this short period of time we share together. I'm going to briefly define OD and how it can play an important role in facilitating social change. I'll identify some of the key challenges and opportunities that AI presents along those lines of making change and social transformation. We'll talk about some real-world examples of OD-driven social change, and we'll develop strategies for implementing OD practices in organizations. You'll be surprised to learn that there have already been laws passed in many countries governing artificial intelligence and its use. And there have been professional associations that have issued guidelines in their occupations about how AI should be used in certain fields of practice. But of course, not all fields have done that, or all countries. Like any good manager, I have an agenda for this short meeting. Here it is. I told you I tend to over-prepare. I'm going to try to get through all of these topics in our brief time together. So we're already in the introduction, and we'll talk about the role of OD in social change. We'll talk about the challenges and opportunities of artificial intelligence in social transformation. We'll talk about the intersection of artificial intelligence and human-centered change. We'll talk about strategies for implementing OD and methods to harness AI. We'll also look at how we build resilience, a term that came up in yesterday's on-site session, and how important that is in fostering collaboration for social change. And then we'll wrap it up and give a bit of time for some Q&A. Here's the cover of the book that we published last year, edited by me with some of my former PhD students who now have their degrees in hand, and many other people who worked on this text. And again, with a focus on not just diversity, equity, and inclusion, but how can we go about the process of creating a culture of enduring organizational social impact. In other words, what role should organizations, specifically companies, play in making the world a better place? And yes, we've all heard of the idea of corporate social responsibility. But we believe that too often CSR, corporate social responsibility, has turned into something where companies throw money at social problems and then wash their hands and walk away without doing any more effort to try to solve the many ills that face society today. And we'll talk about a few of those. I've published many books on OD. My book in the middle hasn't come out yet. It's still in a trial edition, but by fall it will be out. That book is a book full of simulations around OD and is meant to accompany the textbook on the right, which is, you might say, the book on the right is the theory. The book in the middle is the practice of OD. Of course, I've published many other books, and here are just a few others in the OD space. Let's get right into the role of OD in social change. And in this part, I'll define OD, which we did to some extent yesterday, although I realize most of you were not there. What is social change? What do we mean by that term? How OD can facilitate human-centered change, particularly social change. What is the growing influence of AI on organizations and society? And what are the ethical responsibilities of OD practitioners in guiding change in the age of artificial intelligence? So here is a famous quote of defining what is OD. OD is a long-term effort led and supported by top management to improve an organization's visioning, empowerment, learning, and problem-solving processes through an ongoing collaborative management of organizational culture. And I would add at the end that the term culture, as used with organizations, is not a term that was stolen by OD people and used by general management, but quite the opposite. Corporate culture is a term invented in OD and stolen by management theorists. It's important to understand who really owned that term. So what are some of the key distinguishing features of OD that set it apart from other fields of practice? One of those is a long-term focus. OD does not believe in quick fixes. How long does it take to change a corporate culture? Well, we can't snap our fingers. It's not like a television show where we turn on the TV and watch it for 1 hour and all the world's problems are shown to us at the beginning of the TV show and they're all solved by the end of the TV show. That's not how it works in the real world. In OD, we have to have top management support. Why? Because top management controls all the resources. They control the people, the money, the time frames, everything falls under top management control. Collaborative management. Can we implement a organization-wide change without the cooperation of all or most of the managers? No. So we need to have collaboration or management commitment to change. We focus on culture and what is culture? Culture is those ideas where we believe that things should be done a certain way. Culture stems from shared experience over time. Where did Chinese culture come from? For example, 5,000 years of shared culture and history. That's where culture came from with the Chinese. Where did Egyptian culture come from? 6,000 years of shared history. Do you think it's going to be easy to change culture in long-term organizations? Would it be easier to change the culture of GM or some .com company that's 1 year old? Think about it. It's obviously going to be easier to change a company that's only a year old than it is a company that's over 100 years old, like General Motors. And behavioral science application, it means a focus on the human ability and the human psychology. What do we know about the way human beings feel and behave? And psychology has given us much research and much information that we can apply in practical settings to deal with change. But let me add something that is not on this slide, and it's one thing that I've learned after teaching OD for over 30 years, and that is that often students think that OD is just like any other consulting effort, that it is based on the doctor-patient approach. You go see the doctor assumes responsibility for diagnosing your problem and then giving you the medicine or therapy to solve the problem. That is not what OD is all about. OD is based in the paradigm of consulting psychology. And in consulting psychology, the psychologist knows that the best expert for any problem is the client. And the best person to determine the appropriate solutions is the client. The client is always the expert. And so in OD, the challenge is that the expertise for solving problems exists in the organization already, The problem is people don't agree among themselves. The managers don't agree with the other managers. The workers don't agree with each other or with management. And there's much confusion about what are the problems, what are the solutions, what are the best action plans, what are the best ways to evaluate success. And the challenge of OD is getting the cats herded in the right direction. And that's what sets OD apart from management, or what we call in human resources, performance consulting. So OD is values-based, systems-focused, action research-oriented, data-driven. It's all about facilitating change. Facilitation means asking questions rather than telling people. We ask people. It's about improving performance, increasing employee engagement by giving workers a voice in the decisions that affect them. Yes, you could say OD is like democracy in practice inside an organization. We want to hear from all voices, not just the managers. We want to align with business objectives. We believe in evaluating and giving feedback and being adaptable to change. When we switch to social change, you have to understand that traditionally, most of the literature in organization development has focused on change inside companies and organizations, not focused on change across companies or between organizations and the communities or the regions or the nations or the world of which those organizations are part. So when we use the term social change, we're talking about change outside organizational settings. It includes the organization, of course, but it's bigger than that. We're talking about global change. How do we change the way people think, the way people behave, the way people feel? That's what we mean by social change. And these changes can involve new ideas, behaviors, new values, even new social structures. OD, as I said, typically focuses on the internal processes of organizations, but social change, broadly speaking, is about external societal change. What are some examples of external societal change that should be of concern to us today? Well, think about it. One of those, if you snap on the news, you probably are aware of some recent events, increasing political and social polarization. I don't know if you've seen some of the YouTube videos lately of congressmen trying to hold town hall meetings with their constituents. They turn into cat fights. People are angry. What do we do about that? It's a social change question. Economic inequality and workforce disruptions, climate change, environmental crises, technology and the ethics surrounding it, social justice, equity and inclusion struggles, and the fact that there are now 94 terms, according to the National Science Foundation, that cannot be used in federal grant applications. Global health and pandemic preparedness, educational disparities and the digital divide. What do we do about immigration, refugees, nationalism? What do we do about the declining trust in institutions? Name one institution, whether it's governmental like Congress or the courts or the executive branch or colleges and universities or religious institutions or city government, you name an institution, and the trust levels in that institution have declined dramatically. Do you realize only 11% of the U.S. public trusts Congress? 11%. And there are other branches of government that get even lower scores. Balancing individual rights and collective responsibility. So how much can the social pressure or social laws or other regulations influence individual rights? Can we pass a law, for example, that prohibits public protests in a democracy? Is that a legitimate law? Think about it. So, how do organizations deal with this? What is the responsibility of a business to deal with social problems? One way is to just donate money to worthwhile organizations like the Red Cross or the United Way or many others, and then just wash their hands and say, the goal of a business is to make money for the owners or the shareholders and do nothing else. Is that the goal of business? Think about it. Or should businesses encourage employees to donate their off work time to charitable organizations to address social change issues? Like we might even in the next step, we might devote company time, money, and effort directly to improving social change issues. As an example, you may or may not know this, but in China, they shut down the entire country one day a year, and all people go out and plant trees. And that's meant to be the government's way of showing support for environmental issues. Do you agree that's a good idea, or should we just ignore social issues and focus on making money? What is the role of an employing organization? And I think that's an important question we need to ask in an era where people are losing trust in all institutions. What do you believe is right? That's something I want you to think about now and through the rest of today. So when we talk about how OD facilitates human-centered change and transformation, remember, OD is all about facilitating human-centered change by placing an emphasis on understanding and addressing the needs of the people. And the people includes the leaders, but is not restricted to the leaders. We don't want to just hear what the president thinks, what the CEO thinks. We want to hear what all the people think. And if you think that's impractical, realize that technology increasingly makes it possible for us to do a plebiscite and get the entire country to vote on an issue. We don't need Congress anymore. Point of fact, we could pose a law and have the entire U.S. public vote on it and do that in an hour. So why do we need representative democracy anymore? It may stand in the way of hearing the full voice of the people. Now, many people will get upset from what I'm saying, but the point is that is a way of applying OD's role of getting all voices heard around an issue. So I want you to think about, is that a good idea? Could that be tweaked a little bit to make it even better? Or what would be some of the disadvantages of using such approach? Yeah, there could be hackers who would break into a government site where we are trying to take a national vote and sway the votes towards some nefarious purpose. So there could be special challenges, but is it better perhaps than what we have at the moment? I want you to think about that and what technology could do. Increasingly, we live in a society where AI can help us by doing things like automating repetitive tasks that wear human beings out, by enhancing decision making by doing data analysis that it might take humans a long time to do, but AI could do it with a snap of the fingers using the speed of computers. Improve efficiency across various business processes to speed up the workflow or deal with bottlenecks in the production or service delivery process. Enable personalized experiences in healthcare rather than one size fits all approaches that are sometimes necessary because human beings don't have all the data they need to craft a decision so that it best suits one individual. Or facilitate better collaboration among groups of people, even large groups of people. But we do have an ethical responsibility to guide change, and we want to make sure that those changes are transparent, that they are fair, that they allow for accountability, and that they are human-centric. OD practitioners must also actively address the potential biases that can creep into AI systems. Realize AI is coded by human beings, and those coding processes can lead to inbred biases, or AI may crunch numbers, and if there are biases built into an existing system, like hiring practices, promotion practices, AI may tend to perpetuate those existing biases. And for that reason, we need to be aware that AI may need the help of human beings if we are to maintain ethical decision making. And we have to educate stakeholders, not just senior executives, but all workers, on the fact that AI may be prone to some disadvantages. And OD can play an important part in this process. I want you to consider some of the key challenges that can be posed by AI, as well as some of the opportunities that may exist. So data quality and availability can be subject to bias and fairness. What records have we chosen to collect about people? Lack of transparency. If AI crunches the numbers, do we know what the data were behind those numbers? And what steps can we take to make sure that we do? What's the potential for misuse and malicious applications of AI? Who's monitoring that? And what are the guidelines that we can develop to ensure that AI is used in a responsible way, with as free of bias as we can make it? We want to ensure safety and security, and we need skilled personnel to develop and manage those AI systems. So there are many ways we can apply AI that can help us overcome the biases that may creep in due to human beings running these systems. So just think about it. We can use AI to expand, just as a few examples. I'm not going to read all these, but expand access to education, improve the quality of healthcare and public health, enable more inclusive economic opportunities. AI can help us crunch the numbers, find out where the problems are, and direct attention even to how to overcome those problems and solve them. So there are many existing AI applications or programs that can help us deal with some of the challenges we face today. For example, LinkedIn Recruiter AI helps companies identify the best job candidates AI-powered resume screening, and here are a couple of programs mentioned, HireVue and Pymetrics, reduce bias by focusing on skills rather than demographic factors, and chatbots for things like career coaching. And that already exists. That's AI powered, MyPath AI. These are just a few examples of how we can use AI to help human beings. Here's a few others. IBM Watson Health analyzes huge amounts of information to help doctors diagnose diseases. AI-powered prosthetics and exoskeletons to help people with disabilities, physical disabilities. AI-driven drug recovery, and that exists. DeepMind's AlphaFold accelerates the development of life-saving treatments. AI-based mental health chatbots like Wissa and Wobot, they offer 24/7 emotional support to people. So there are already many existing AI applications that can help human beings. But again, I think OD's role is to communicate this and also help make sure that these AI applications are used responsibly and pull in the thinking of all the great minds to ensure that the guidelines we have for AI are lead to ethical use. So let's talk a little bit about how we balance technological advancement with human well-being, how AI can be used to support, not replace, human-centered change, and the role of ethical leadership. So balancing technological advancement with human well-being has much to do with socio-technical systems. If that's a new term to you, it's been around in the OD field since the 1940s. The Tavistock Institute in the UK is the most world-famous place where all the research is centered. Of course, there's work done in other places, but socio-technical means human technology integration. And this is critical going forward in an age where AI is going to be used in many more applications. How can we ensure that it will be used ethically? So right now, AI has the greatest application for analyzing large databases, automating repetitive tasks, and we can use AI to tailor change management strategies, even down to individuals, rather than one-size-fits-all company-wide approaches to change strategies. So we can even get real-time monitoring and feedback of change efforts, and we can pinpoint potential barriers to change efforts and get real-time information about individual training needs and upskilling requirements. So AI governance is really important, and we have to ensure that there's empathy demonstrated in AI adoption. Be careful of the thinking. Remember what Elon Musk just was quoted as saying, empathy is for losers. That was his direct quote. Empathy is the essence of OD, in my belief. Feelings are facts with human beings. That's why it is important to deal with the feelings. And this is why many change efforts fail, is managers ignore the feelings of people. So we want change management for ethical AI integration. We want to build AI literacy and ethical awareness. What are the appropriate and inappropriate uses of AI? How do we continuously monitor the use of AI and make sure that we have an ethical corporate culture in using it? So how can we apply some OD methods? Remember, the essence of OD is built in the models that come with the field. The most famous are the first two, Lewin's action research model, the basis. Its focus is on identifying and solving problems by pulling people together and getting everybody's ideas about the problems, the solutions, the action plans, and the metrics. Cooper Ryder's appreciative inquiry model, and some people call that strengths-based thinking, where we focus on what is going right and how can we leverage what's going right to competitive advantage in organizational settings. And there are other ways that OD can contribute to dealing with the integration of AI in human systems. We have to establish a clear vision and a shared values about the use of AI, foster psychological safety, and so forth. So I want to talk a little bit about resilience, a topic that came up yesterday in our on-site conference, although some of you were, of course, not there. But resilience is critical in dealing with the disruptions that AI can cause with human systems. People may be shocked into paralysis by the introduction of AI and may worry about their job security. What are some of the ways resilience can be linked to our behaviors in ways that can affect how we can successfully use AI? And here are some specific behavioral areas that we may want to focus on when we talk about the competency of resilience. We look at emotional regulation, how to manage the stress that comes with introducing new technology. Make no mistake, there is stress. Cognitive flexibility, we may have to reinvent the way we do our jobs. Self-efficacy, the belief in your own ability to influence events. Support systems, where can I go to get help? And a growth mindset, view challenges as opportunities rather than worry about them as threats. So resilience is crucial in dealing with the introduction of AI. So we also have to be thinking about AI and how it may influence employee engagement. We care about engagement because bad engagement leads to turnover and absenteeism, and that can cost us money. It can also lead to sabotage. And sabotage sometimes happens when people resist the change that comes with new technology, like the introduction of AI. So what are some ways we can encourage collaboration between OD practitioners, technologists, and stakeholders? Here's a list of specific actions that we can take. We can work with them to come up with a shared vision, create cross-functional teams, develop a common language. This is a series of action steps that we can take to foster that resilience that we may need, and OD people are well equipped to do this. This particular slide is really interesting because it talks about developing organizational policies and also occupational and even national laws, rules, and regulations to govern the ethical use of the AI in organizational settings. I believe OD people should clearly have a voice in these discussions. Does your organization currently have an AI policy for how it can be ethically used? If not, you might want to be thinking about that. But they already exist. For example, industry standards. The European Union has the AI Act. There's an ethically aligned design in the engineering field, and OECD has a statement on AI principles. In an organization, we may want to form an AI ethics committee that would include AI or OD people, technologists, ethicists, HR leaders, legal experts, and other stakeholders like operations managers to oversee AI governance. And these are just a few steps we can take to make sure that that will happen. It's important to have a policy around AI. It's important to have an audit and review process. How well are we using AI in alignment with our stated policy? What are the mechanisms for whistleblowers and feedback mechanisms when abuses occur? And how do we train leaders and employees on AI ethics? All of those are things to be thinking about as you go through this conference. And as you go back to your workplace, you're probably still in your workplace, but in the future, we're going to have to be thinking about how AI affects us, our organizations, and society as a whole. So let me conclude with a quick summary of what I've talked about. We defined OD. Remember, I emphasized OD is all about collaboration, about making sure that all voices are heard. We don't just talk about participation and participative management, we live it in OD. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations are still authoritarian, run like dictatorships. But what we want is more voice from the people. And we also identified some of the key challenges and opportunities. We talked about the fact that AI holds much promise for the future, but it must be guided ethically, and we need to ensure that there's an effective integration of AI and the human side of organizations. If we run after productivity, thinking AI is going to give us the answer to all of our productivity challenges, while ignoring the human side of the enterprise, it will fail. And there's even a term for that. It's called the productivity paradox. Look it up. The productivity paradox states that many organizations jump into technological change expecting to get huge productivity increases, and they are disappointed when they don't get it because they ignored the human side. Don't make that mistake. So let me open it to questions. I realize we may be time pressed or we may be pressed for time, but let me ask for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Professor Rothwell, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We have actually a couple of questions. So the question we have, what are your thoughts on sociocracy and holacracy as ways to organize companies?
How to organize companies, bigger than the question of how to organize AI with companies, inside companies. I'm shaky on what that question means. That's why I'm asking. Is there any way to elaborate? If I answer the question as stated, I would say that organization design, which is an important issue in OD, organization design is all about how we organize to do the work. Some people call that the field of organization design. AI will increasingly lead to smaller groups of people working together, I believe, because that will enhance collaboration and also make it easier to integrate the human side and the technology side. I think that as organizations get bigger and bigger, it gets more difficult to build that community. I think there is such a thing as diseconomies of scale, meaning that it's difficult to deal with extremely large organizations because it's too difficult to herd so many cats in the same direction. How easy is it to manage a company the size of Coca-Cola that does business in over 100 nations? Try to roll out a company-wide change effort in a company of that size, and you will see what I'm talking about. So AI may actually make that easier, but I think it's going to lead to more personalization, and that will lead to smaller work groups. My opinion. Other questions?
The Code app is dramatically changing the way people work in organizations, documentation, process, cabin boards, videos, communication. What is the field of OD doing to incorporate those tools?
Well, the field of OD has, this is one of the challenges of OD, I believe, is to pull in the many technology tools that exist today into the OD field. I can remember hearing a technologist give a talk to one of our classes, and when he was asked, and he was focused on trying to sell a technology product that could basically facilitate group decision making, group decision support. When he was asked about OD, he said, "Oh, you mean the flip chart and post-it note crowd." So what he was saying was he was making fun of the fact that OD has not fully integrated the many technological tools and programs and applications that exist that can facilitate groups making decisions together in collaborative ways. And unfortunately, I have to agree with him. I think that is a challenge for the OD field. So hopefully we will get better with that over time. Other questions?
Okay. How do you recommend teaching group dynamics using AI now? Can we create our own unique ChatGPT for group dynamics?
Well, I believe we can. It's possible. I've heard about it. I have not personally experienced it, but someone came to me and they said, "Rothwell, you've written 170 books. We would like you to give us all of your books and we will upload them into a Rothwell specific AI. And then people could go to that AI and pose a question and get a Rothwell answer across 170 books." So I believe the same power exists with applying AI to group dynamics, to observing groups, to offering suggestions about how to improve group dynamics. I think that some of those tools exist or could be invented rather quickly using the power of technology. So I'm an optimist about the use of AI. I just believe that it does raise ethical issues that need to be considered. And I think that we also must worry about the impact on society. We have many social problems, and I believe AI can help address many of those problems. But are people willing to do that? Or does business think and other organizations think that it's not their responsibility to deal with social problems? Let somebody else deal with that. We'll focus on making money only. I think that's the wrong way to look at things. If the world outside the company falls apart, how easy is it going to be for the company to do business? I think there should be a selfish stake in social action. That's my thought. Other questions? We're almost out of time, I think.
So how do you make individuals and organizations understand the significance of AI in our present day organizational cultures? We know that humans resist change.
Yes, and one of the reasons humans resist change, and there's a lot of academic research on why people resist change. I've seen lists of 15 or more reasons that can be very helpful for managers if they are embarking on a change. But I think you could even ask ChatGPT or other AI engines, what are some of the challenges that could be expected with the implementation of AI in this organization? And I think you would get a pretty good answer from ChatGPT or other engines of AI. And that may give you a starting point. I think a lot of those AI engines rely on some of that published research that exists, and you can even ask for that from those AI engines. Give me the academic research on resistance to change and its reasons, and what suggestions do you have to overcome those with the implementation of AI? That would be an AI prompt. And see what comes out. I think you would get a pretty good answer. So AI can speed up great decision making. And if you ask it to rely on academic research for some of its guidance, it will. Of course, some AI engines are better at that than others. So you need to be aware of that. Other questions? Halima, I will let you tell me when we cut this off.
Sorry, do you see job crafting as a way to engage employees to redesign the roles with the AI?
I do. Job crafting means we build the job to suit the strengths of an individual worker. I think that's a wave of the future. Some employers that are more traditional may have trouble understanding that approach because they see jobs as boxes on org charts, and they want to force people into those boxes, those job descriptions. And then they complain when workers say, well, that's not in my job description. And yet they may have encouraged that kind of thinking through their own behaviors. So yes, I think AI can support job crafting and make each job more keyed to the strengths of an individual worker. Of course, we have to know what those are, what those strengths are.
Okay, excuse me, Dr. Rothwell, can you switch to the second slide, please?
The second slide.
Next one.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the Workforce Education and Development OD&C conference organizers, we hope you enjoyed today's session. If we didn't answer your question, please feel free to email us or contact presenters directly. We would love to hear your feedback on today's webinar, keynote speaker. Please take a moment to complete the survey using the link in the chat box. We have more sessions for you today. Check the conference website using the link in the chat box. Also, we are delegated to extend special innovations to all of you for the Workforce Education and Development OD&C Professionals Development Network webinar series. Since 2020, we have been offering free monthly webinars with externally speakers. You will find more information in our website. Please find the link in the chat. Remember, registration for all of our events is completely free and can be found on our website. We want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to join us. You can also stay uploaded by following us on our social media platforms, including Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Thank you again for joining us today. We hope to see you soon and have a great day for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.